morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We certainly are going to have a perspective on how to handle your money this morning, and we certainly have a great personality in that profession. And she's going to be introduced very shortly. Our co-host this morning is Mr. Kirby Rogers, retired school executive. And we're glad he stayed around in Logan County after he hung up his spurs on the wall here, after educating and administrating to the school. We always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo or two. We might have a couple here this morning. Yesterday, I'm afraid that some people, we all know some people just didn't pay attention to 911, which happened 17 years ago, November the 11th, 2001. It's a day to remember even today, 17 years later. And folks at Copper Creek, in conjunction with the local officials and so forth, Copper Creek Village out there by the hospital, they put on a very nice ceremony, service, memorizing in memorial of 911. And it was very nicely done. Oh, yeah. Herb Schrader, old fellow like I am, he hasn't lost his voice. He still got us a nice version of God Bless America. So, God bless those folks who put that on. That's our kudos today. I think Mr. Rogers had one he'd like to add.
Yes.
Pay particular attention to him. He's a radio personality, folks.
Brett Borst from Bonanza.
Nice,
kudos
man.
out to you and your staff. They had a free lunch for all first responders yesterday, and there were all kinds of gentlemen and ladies in there taking advantage of that, and thank you, Brett, to you and your great staff out at Bonanza.
Well, thank you very much for that, and that's very appropriate. Nice young man, nice family there. They've done a great job down through the years out there. I noticed that there's always a pretty good attendance out there, and I'm happy to see that. Now, we have a special guest this morning, and I'm going to turn the privilege of introducing it to Mr. Rogers. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, today we have for you Christine Short. She's a certified financial planner for Edward Jones.
Edward Jones. I heard about them somewhere along on the street. What they sell produce? They sell great financial services. Christine, nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
One of the reasons, folks, pay attention to you out to your list, both of you listeners. One of the reasons that we asked Christine to appear with us this morning is this young lady has just completed a rather rigorous financial exam. No better word for it than that, is there, Christine? And she has now become a certified financial planner. Now, folks, that's a big deal, and we're lucky to have somebody like that here in Logan County, Abbeville, to help you look after your money. So let's talk. Good morning, Christine. Let's talk a little bit about that CFP.
Sure.
Let's first address that and what it takes to study for that and the exam. And so just tell us an overall picture of the CFP program.
Sure. So the CFP board is really kind of the governing agency that really releases the certification. And there's a couple of different pieces to becoming certified. So education is one of them. So there are several classes that you have to complete to even sit for an exam. So they do a background check. They check to make sure you have a degree from an institution. And then after that, several classes that involve several different areas of financial planning. So everything from estate planning, insurance, taxes, general principles of investing, investments, all of those pieces together, then you're required to complete some classes. After that, a 6-hour exam. To actually sit for the exam, you have to have completed each of those classes. They do a background check on ethics, that you are up to date on your ethics training, and that you are able to use those certification marks then.
That's really, I think that's a huge accomplishment in your profession. Let's just talk about your profession, Edward D. Jones in particular, for just a second here. You all know that there are places that we can find folks to help you manage your money.
Sure.
Some folks don't even realize who Edward D. Jones is. They should. Like other people who are brokers and representatives of people on the stock market. Edward D. Jones first was founded by Edward D., of course, in the, you told me and I forgot all the way up. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
1920s?
Yeah, 1922.
Uh-huh.
After that, his son, Ted Jones, then was really the I think the 18th advisor then that worked for Edward D. Okay. After that, the 50s was the first time that they opened really a satellite office. So the very first office was in Mexico, Missouri. And 1957, I think, was the year. We really saw then that transform into what Edward Jones is now. There are over 17,000 offices across the United States and Canada at this point. Edward Jones manages over $1 trillion in assets. So we crossed that landmark here in the last year. At this point, I believe we have the most individual offices out of all the financial firms. So definitely a growing company.
Well, it's very interesting, and it must be the Edward D. Jones modus operandi, as they say in the police circles. Their MO is they're very conservative, and you'll take Kirby's money and try to invest it in various instruments across the board. And Edward D. Jones clients, their agents, they're not particularly calling up clients. They say, Kirby, I got a really hot deal for you. That's not their MO. Theirs is a steadiness, and they're just directed towards the long haul.
Right.
And interestingly enough, you talk about the satellite offices. Bob, your predecessor, Bob Neal, came here, opened up the first Edward D. Jones office in Lincoln.
Yeah.
And now we have, and that speaks to the economy of the country, of our county, 4 Edward D. Jones offices here in Logan County.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason for that is it's the Edward D. Jones MO, as I say, the way they treat and handle their clients.
Absolutely. And really that is, Edward Jones, I would say, is very unique in our philosophy is establishing more the personal relationships with the clients we work with, really determining what's important to them, and then from there developing a plan that we can stay in partnership with throughout their lives. So yeah, it's a little different. It's not like you said where you call somebody and, hey, let's just invest your money. It's more of a long-term plan together. And it has grown enormously, especially, like you said, in Logan County. Bob started his office, I want to say, in the mid-70s, 76, 77.
That's about right.
So 40 years later, now there are four offices in Lincoln.
Okay, Christine, let's role play a little bit. Let's assume that I'm young, which I'm not. And
Well, that's a big assumption right
let's say
there.
I'm in my mid-30s, and I walk into your door, and I'm a real novice.
Sure.
What are the kinds of things that you would walk through with someone just starting out and with a young family?
I think we always want to figure out where you're at now. So we'll talk a lot about the saving that you've done to date, and if you haven't done any, the importance of that. And I think, the investment side of things, I always look at the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, all of those things are the tools to get the job done. So I try not to spend too much time on those in the beginning. We focus more on the vehicles for saving, whether that be an IRA or your retirement account at work or other sorts of savings vehicles. We talk about how much risk you're comfortable taking on. That's a really important piece of the puzzle. And then what your goal is, what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're in your mid-30s with a young family, are we talking about saving for their college? Are we most concerned about your retirement, even though that may be 30 or 40 years away. So that becomes the most important driver, is what we're trying to accomplish, how fast we want to drive to get there, and then we'll match the right tools to do the job. So I think sometimes people get really hung up in the tools, and those are used to hit the goal. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
I hope so.
That's a rather profound answer. I thought that was a very good question, sir. Again, we're talking about MO, modus operandi, the way they handle their customers, and I really, I just get kind of carried away with this, but I really think that's the reason that your offices have been successful. 648-5510. Somebody might want to have a question of Mrs. Short. We're really happy to have her with us. To take, she's got to sit here and watch the ticker, so we're going to get her back in the office. She's not going to give any hot tips or anything like that. That's not her. That's not the way she operates there in that office. But seriously, there might be somebody have a question about investing in general.
Sure.
The biggest problem that people have, I think, is starting early enough on a savings philosophy.
Sure.
And if mothers and dads can get their kids to save at least 10% of what they get their hands on, by the time those kids are 30, it'd be staggering.
It's pretty powerful when you start looking at the compounding of an investment, and there's all kinds of fancy calculations out there to figure out how much you're going to earn, and year after year what it will be worth 20, 30 years from now. A really kind of fast and simple rule is called the rule of 72s, and if you've never heard of that, it basically means that the number 72, if you make a 7.2% return, it would take 10 years to double your money. 7.2 times 10 equals 72. So that's a real kind of fast and simple rule that you can use to figure out how long it takes to double money. But if you start applying that at the age of 20 or 25 or 30, and you think how many times you have the power to double, there's some real power behind that.
One of the things my father did with us is when we were first married, as soon as we announced that the wife was pregnant, he'd start a jar, and he'd throw all his change in the jar all during the pregnancy, and when the baby was born, he'd hand us a jar full of cash and say, "This is the college fund, start it."
Sure.
And my dad's been passed away 11 years now, and I'm doing the same thing with my grandkids.
Sure.
Basic philosophy.
Yeah, people when especially younger kids, meaning in their 20s, when you can really show them that, think of the amount of money we spend on a cup of coffee or, going to the movies for the night, they start putting aside $50 a month or $100 a month. The power behind that can be pretty substantial, especially when you start using those tax advantage sorts of accounts like a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. So like I said, the tools have to match the job, but we spend a lot of time getting to know people before we really put together a plan to make sure that it's appropriate and that we know exactly what they're trying to accomplish. So
I thought you were nodding in assent to that. I didn't know whether you had a profound question or not. I'm never sure about Kirby.
I could have been nodding off about my nap time.
There's that to be said. You wouldn't dare do that with this guest this morning. Let's go back to your CFP thing. Just as you might get, I'm very impressed with the fact because that's a professional accomplishment, and it required hours of preparation and study. So, can you take us there when you first decided this is what I want to do?
Yeah, so it's been a goal of mine for the last couple of years, but really just spent the past year really digging in to get it done. So I put in, I would say around 600 hours to get the certification between studying and classwork and that sort of thing. I started last November. So I went from November and then tested in July, which is a pretty fast track
I was
to
going to say,
take.
that's rather fast to get there, that fast.
By the end, my family was ready for me to be done.
Yeah, I might add that this kid just doesn't go into school to learn to take tests. She's running a very successful financial office to start with, plus the fact that she has some little rugrats running
Yeah, I
around.
was gonna say, that mother roll didn't stop for those times, did
Does
it?
not stop.
The mother roll
No.
never let up. She still had to do that. But
Yes.
then in July, you set for this exam. And I know that, like young lawyers and doctors, they set for exams. It takes a long time. How long did it take you to go through this exam, Christine?
The exam itself is a 6-hour exam, so it's broken into 2 sections, 3 hours, a 45-minute break, and then another 3 hours. Pass rate this particular cycle was 57%, I believe. So it's a tough one, and definitely a lot of preparation goes into preparing to not only take an exam like that, but it is meant to be a very difficult thing to pass, even after you've completed all the coursework.
Well, it allows you to be more professional. Excuse me, please. I get all choked up when I talk about that. Seriously, it allows you to be much more, handle your client's money with a lot more acumen.
Well, it's definitely a more comprehensive approach. So it is making sure that we know all aspects of the plan. So, like I said, I don't personally do taxes, but to be able to give some thoughts on that, and refer them to their tax professional, but to at least have some more information about that side of their plan, their estate plan. I'm not an attorney. I don't write wills and trusts, but at the same time, it's important to know how those can work and all of the pieces.
In conjunction with a good attorney,
That's
then
right.
you can serve your clients exceptionally
right.
well. We have both hands with gloves on, handling
Right.
this person's money.
That's
and
right.
It's extremely important, particularly today. It's always been important, but
That's right. So I do work a lot with other professionals and, helping make sure that we have a really rock solid plan. Throughout someone's life, there's many things that come up in terms of, making sure that we have all of their documents in place for when something happens later in life. We want to make sure that we've thought through their tax consequences, all those pieces really make a solid plan.
Okay, now on a personal note, now you do realize you're on the radio, but we're also on YouTube.
Oh, yes.
Now, I'm sure you've got some youngsters at home that want to make sure Mom takes care of them, so tell us
do.
about your family and say hi to your kids.
Yes. Hi. I have 3 children, and they attend West Lincoln Broadwell. So I've got Mallory in 6th grade. I've got Preston in 4th grade and Taylor in 2nd. They are very busy children, so we are always on the run. We've got a cross-country runner in 6th grade, and my son plays soccer, so we've got the big Route 66 soccer tournament this weekend.
that's a big deal.
It is. There's a lot of teams come in, and Lincoln will be happening this weekend with all the soccer players. So we definitely stay on the move as a family. My husband Josh works for McLean County in Bloomington. So yeah, we're a busy family of 5.
Now, where did that cross-country experience come from?
Yeah, well, mom was a runner way back in her day. It's been quite some time ago, but I ran track all through high school, and then I was a runner at Eastern Illinois University.
You can
years
tell she wasn't a
ago.
shot putter.
Yeah.
I was a little of everything. I did the heptathlon, so 7 events over 2 days. I threw the javelin. I ran the 400 hurdles. I did all of it. All of it. And then even after college, I actually was a teacher for several years. I think that translates very well in my career now. teaching and explaining and making sure people understand things well. And I taught for 11 years junior high at Chiddix Junior High in Normal, and coached cross country, and I was the head girls track coach at Normal West. So
yeah, and speaking of understanding things well, we understand things very well up here, that this station will not run without sponsorship.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to take a few minutes time and recognize our sponsors and be right back for our discussion and our fun talk with Christine Short. Go right ahead, James. And Mr. Ash just handed the con back to the old fellow here. The program's Viewpoint, of course, each Wednesday morning, 8:15 to 900 hours. Our guest this morning, a special young lady. My wife thinks so. So therefore, I have to defer to my wife's judgment. Christine Short. And Christine is managing, she's the big person at Edward D. Jones' office on Broadway. As we discussed early in the program, Edward D. Jones Investment House, with an unusual modus operandi, and that they're pretty conservative, and they're not calling people every 2 or 3 days or weeks and say, I got a hot tip for you. Burton View coal would be a good buy. So they don't do that. So it's impressive. And the financial world is a very complicated thing, particularly for those of us who weren't as good as math as Kirby Rogers was. I turn the con to you, sir.
Thank you. I happened to be lucky enough to be on the program last week, and they told me I had a face for radio. So when I
to
come
which
out,
everybody laughed in derision.
yeah, so I come out here, and then I learned they're taping this and making it available on YouTube live. So sometime this afternoon you can get on and you could check out Miss Short. I was fortunate enough, I have a daughter that's married to a military gentleman, and they're out in Kaiserslautern, Germany. So I emailed her and said, get on and see your dad on the radio, and she got a kick out of that.
Yeah, as I say, from Bombay to or Bangladesh to Boston, this appears. Mr. Ash puts this on late in the afternoon, on Wednesday afternoons after the program appears live, and they're at rest. And you can let me see if I can repeat this right. If you just put a YouTube and put WLCN Viewpoint, that'll do it fine. Very simple. It's not difficult to get on at all. YouTube, WLCN Viewpoint. You'll be surprised what you find there. Boy, there was a big silence after that. Christine, we were talking about earlier off air the number of CFPs in the country, and I was rather astounded to learn that there are not that many. So take those numbers for us and review them, please.
Now, I hope I don't have it
close
to
there
the
too. We're
exact
not going to
number,
hold
but
you
I'm
down.
giving you some
Yeah.
approximations.
Yes,
but
right.
I did look up just the other day, as a matter of fact, that CFPs in the United States is around 18,000, which I would consider that a fairly small number. State of Illinois is somewhere around 4,000, and then from there, 22% are female. So I am definitely in the minority when it comes to the number there. Edward Jones in general, as a financial firm, just to kind of go off on a little shoot here, that is definitely something that Jones is looking to even improve. We feel like our number of female advisors is somewhere around 20%, and we'd like that to be higher. So Edward Jones is actively still hiring people. In Illinois, all over the United States, we're looking for new and talented advisors. So that's something to keep in mind too. We're still growing.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting to find that there are not that many people. It's kind of an exclusive club, the CFP thing is. It really is.
It is, and it's a lot of work. You know, you've got to realize that most people that sit for the exam are practicing advisors, and so you are often handling a business, and to find the time to study and dedicate to many hours is a challenge. And I felt like if I was going to accomplish it, it was something I wanted to. You got to set the time aside, and you just click away at it a little every day and make it happen. But it is a challenge.
Well, kudos to you, because you said that passage rate is like 54%.
Right.
So that goes a lot back to your preparation at Lincoln High School and Eastern Illinois University and Illinois State University.
Yes.
And so all of those kinds of things.
It is. It's all just building blocks. I feel like all those different experiences, prepare you for the next thing. So, I grew up in Lincoln. I was a West Lincoln girl before it was West Lincoln Broadway. And then, of course, like you said, Lincoln High School and EIU and Illinois State, all of those things were just preparation for the next thing. So
Tim Butler thinks highly of you since he's an EIU graduate. The fact that we all know that there's going to come a day when Don Peasley's going to take a hard look at us, and we have to think of our families, and so most people think in terms of preparing an estate as going to a good lawyer, and certainly you should. That's pretty obvious. That just goes without. Anyway, but in conjunction with that, a good lawyer would be consulting with a financial planner, with the client's consent, of course, and using the combination of an Edward G. Jones representative and a good lawyer. Some families can really benefit by that in a great manner.
Right. Well, I think it's important when people are planning that piece, the really end of life, or really just what the next step is. There's a lot of creative ways to pass on assets to beneficiaries. It's important that you have beneficiaries named, or that you've addressed that in your estate plan in some way. A lot of people like to talk about gifting. So that can be a process that's utilized, whether that be gifting to your children or to a charity, and making sure that you know what all your options are, and that you're aware, of them, and someone's communicated those well to you, and put that all in your plan.
Do you have opportunities to discuss with lawyers on a rather frequent basis in matters such as that?
I look at that as part of that keeping you on track. So there's really 3 steps to us meeting together. It's getting to know you and understand what your goals and what you're trying to accomplish and what's important to you, putting together a really solid plan, and then partnering together throughout your life to keep you on track. So later in life, that is a lot of the times what our discussion is about. What's next? What are these assets for? Who are they for? And what can we do to make sure that they do what you intend?
Okay, now let's go back to that role play again.
You like the role play?
Yeah, I like that.
You learned that in Education 101.
I've come into you now, and we've invested some money, and I'm kind of walking out the door. What kind of communication should I expect back from you once I leave and I'm a solid customer with you?
Well, this is where my old teaching days probably come into play, because I am a very organized person that likes to know exactly what's going to happen. So every office probably handles things their own way. I put together a yearly contact schedule, and I do that from the first meeting, so people know exactly when they're going to hear from us. And we do rotate then through different topics that I think are important for us to discuss throughout the year. So we put together really a systematic plan so everyone knows when you are going to hear from me. And then, of course, things come up between our meetings. So me being local and being a face that you can stop in and see, of course, we talk often.
What kind of reports would I expect?
Yeah, well, we do obviously your monthly statements. So you do receive, you get those in the mail. We have all the good technology stuff. So now, we have a lot of people who do their reporting online, where they can see everything electronically. And I think, it's probably pretty common, but everything from your tax forms can upload directly to your to your CPA or to your tax program if you do them yourself. So there's a lot of good technology stuff that Edward Jones offers also.
You know, Kirby, when Bob Neal decided to hang his hat on the wall, he said, Christine Chart will be handling your account. You're going to be very pleased. He knew what he was talking about. He knew that we would get that kind of same service that Bob Neal gave, just steady, put it away, don't worry about it. They'll call you if something's wrong.
Yeah.
So far, I've never had that call. Don't you dare call me now between now and the next time I see you.
Well, and I think it's important for people to know what to expect. You know, you would never want to come into an office and you roll over money or you deposit money and then you walk out and think, I don't even know what comes next. I hope I hear from them. So it is a relationship business, and I feel like that is part of myself and my office administrator, Mamie Shull, is fabulous.
Oh, let's talk about Mamie.
We could talk about Mamie a lot.
We can finish out the morning. Yes, if you have to be gone, you can just rely on things going on the same.
That's right.
Yeah, a delightful lady.
Karen Bent, she is also with us part-time. So, that one advisor and basically one office administrator system is really what Edward Jones has in place. It's meant to be like that, and it's the culture of our firm. We feel very strongly about one advisor taking care of one set of clients. So our office works with about 400 families, and we take that really seriously.
Due to the electronic age, it isn't necessary to get together as often as you might like. But I presume you have seminars that all the agents in various districts come in together and sit down and talk about what's going on in their offices and so forth?
We do. We're split into regions or areas, so we're able to meet with other advisors in our area to make sure that, we know the new ways of technology or different things that are happening throughout the firm. So yes, we do that. It also helps technology-wise. I do have clients all over the United States. I'm licensed, I want to say, probably 25 states. But with technology, I still do face-to-face. So we do a lot of WebEx conferences or, like the FaceTiming with the way you can do things now. So.
And the office is at 515 Broadway. Plenty of free parking in beautiful downtown Lincoln.
That's right.
In Abesville. I call it Abesville.
Which really, the building turned out very, very cool. That was, we actually moved into that location 4 years ago. Bob was located across from the movie theater, and Jim Sparrow is still located there. Myself and Mamie moved over to a new location on Broadway Street, right across from the State Bank, renovated, and it turned out awesome.
That's really neat. Office. It's neat. It's a neat environment.
Yes. Yep. So we really restored back to the old kind of look. So original hardwood floors and the tall tin ceilings, and it turned out really neat.
Now we call that restored back to the Gossett years.
Oh boy, that hurt. That hurt funny. I'm bleeding a little now. Seriously, that's just nice environment as opposed to spit and polish, modern, real. It kind of goes back to the old days. You see the guys with green eye shades sitting back in the money, counting the money, and running an old-fashioned adding machine.
It took some work, though. That building, when we first moved in, no windows. All the windows were really drywalled over. One of the back windows, I think there was an article in the Courier about it a few years ago. One of the windows had a 50,000 colony beehive buried inside of it. So it came a long ways, but we're really proud of our building and the space.
That was a tavern many years ago, and at the time of the hearings now in Congress, Oh gosh, I forgot now. Anyway, it was very interesting, like today's hearings. And I was on business in Chicago Street. Then I'd slip out my back door and slip in the back door there and sit down and watch this hearing for a little while, and then go back to work. Yeah.
121 Tavern, wasn't it?
Yeah, right.
I believe that was the name of it. It's come a long way, so.
Yeah, well, we're very proud of you and the accomplishments you've had. Kudos to all the working women out there and the professional women in Lincoln.
Yes.
What are you doing for lunch today, Christine?
I know why you asked that.
If that was a planted
Rotary
question,
Club.
I never saw a planted question.
I am a member of Lincoln Rotary, and we meet every week, Wednesdays at noon at Lincoln College. So we will be there today. I'm not sure who our guest speaker is, but I do know our president probably knows.
Rick Ham is in charge of the program, and he's bringing in a gentleman to talk about Timber Point Camp at Lake Bloomington.
Very nice. Very nice.
Rotary has taken on a little breather, a little new air since we got Mr. Rogers president here. We might want to keep him for a couple of years to keep the patient
yes.
on resuscitation.
I would vote for that.
We can work that out maybe. Has it ever occurred to you, not to you, but with you, that somebody walk in, I got all this money, I just found out, what do I do with it? You ever have a client walk in that it was some newfound wealth and that they don't know what the heck to do?
Oh, yeah.
Do you really?
Oh, yes. And I think, we're really in a time period right now where we'll see more and more of that. The baby boomer generation is getting older, and so we do know that there'll be a large passing of wealth really from that generation to the next, and often people need help with that, and I think it all goes back to those first steps of really knowing what's important to you, what are you trying to accomplish, and how do you want to get there. So we see that probably more than you think.
That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. It hadn't occurred to me that somebody just found some new cash on the street and said,
well, it's often inherited from
yes. Mm-hmm.
another generation.
So it's never too late to start.
That's right. That's right. And I think more than anything, it's really doing some fact finding. What things have you done currently to save, and then let's put a goal in mind. Let's put not an end point, but what are we trying to accomplish? I'll ask people often, what is this money for? Mm-hmm. And it's amazing that sometimes people haven't thought about it. They're not sure. So we talk a lot about who is this for? Is this for a certain expense? Is this for you to live on when you're 75 years old? And then from there, we'll match the tools to the job.
How do you handle a client when you, to the best of your ability, you give them some heartfelt advice, and they sit there and look at you with a blank face, I don't like that.
Yeah. We have that sometimes too.
Human nature being what it is, I'm sure that's the case. That's a tough one to handle, though.
Right, and I do think, I know I've said this so many times, but it is really critical to be a good listener and a good relationship builder, to be able to understand people and to communicate then what my value is, what do I bring to the table. And frankly, I'm probably there's always going to be somebody you're not the right fit for, and that's okay. So I feel like when people really, when we can bridge that gap of me really understanding, and they see what the value is I have to bring to the table, then it works well.
Kirby, she mentioned two words there that would not apply to today's politicians. Good listener.
Good listener, yes.
They don't know anything about that. The first idea about how to be a listener, all they would do is expostulate.
I've always heard that's why the Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can listen twice as much as you talk.
See, that's what he gleaned. That's what he gleaned from Administrator 101. I might add, by the way, that Kirby was Administrator of District 27 for a long time, and I worked under the best of the administrators of those days with Les Plotner in what we call the older days, and you were kind of the Plotner mold. You came in there and kept at it and worked at it and studied and became a damn good administrator.
Well, Les used to say Lincoln 27 has the most schools, the most teachers, and the most students. So he says we're the big school, not the high school.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Plans down the road, Mrs. Short, other than making it your purpose to serve your best clients to the best of your great ability, what other plans do you have?
It's a good question. To be honest, after finishing in July with the exam, it's been to just kind of take a deep breath. But I do have some personal goals, obviously, for my business. And then, I serve in some leadership positions within our region of Edward Jones. So we have about 55 advisors in our region, and I serve some leadership positions there. So just continuing to grow and develop in those roles are important to me too.
I thought you certainly had some profound closing.
I always have something to say, but we're not quite there yet.
Oh, okay. And then, of course, Kirby has twisted my arm to fill his position as president of Rotary next year. So.
Well, now I just learned something today that I had not learned.
Yeah, you wanted me to stay on another year, and she was nodding her head yes.
I was saying yes. That sounds good.
You say you're supposed to learn something important every day.
There you go.
Rotarians, here you heard it here first. That forebodes good things.
Yes.
Yeah. That'd be a lot more fun.
Well, I don't know about that. Kirby's
No,
did a pretty good
no,
job.
it's been fun with Kirby. Christine Short, we appreciate the fact that you've given of your time this morning to come here and talk to us about your profession, and it is just exactly that. Kirby, I thank you very much for filling in for Judith Kay, who has been my lifetime almost partner here in this position here. She'll be back with us next week. And she's taken the cure, and it's taken, so she'll be fine. No, seriously, Kirby, I thank you for appearing here.
Thanks for having me.
We always try to close with a quote or two. This certainly is far less than profound, but I've got a tag on the end of it, which is the reason I'm using it. Great investors need to have the right combination of intuition, business sense, and investment interest. Well, duh, of course. But this is honed so much more if you go to Edward D. Jones' offices, particularly Christine Short, and she'll help you accomplish all of these goals. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you for having me.